the agreement on the recording, though.
Okay, so we are recording.
You asked where you can click on it.
Hey, Imago families. My name's Jonathan, and I'm one of the pastors here at Imago Day Community. And we want to keep these online conversations going for really with two hopes in there. We recognize that you're the primary disciplers of your kids, and right now you're under a ton of stress with work or the stress of having all your kids home. And so we want to make the most of that. We want to help you make the most of that. And the intent for these conversations is really to get after some different facets and both proactive ways of living as parents, and also things we need to consider that are potential barriers or problems with all of us home, all of us in the same space, all of us online. And so the second conversation we want to have is with Patrick and Rachel Wilson. Rachel's the Imago Kids pastor around here, and she does a variety of things even beyond that. And then Patrick, he is over our, I'm totally spacing on the name of it now at Imago. What's the initiative?
The Illumination Lab.
The Illumination Lab. And can you talk about that just for a quick second?
Yeah, that's essentially just a kind of an ongoing conversation and equipping of fledgling entrepreneurs who want to put faith at the center of their work. So we want to support people. We want to equip them as best we can and unleash them to build awesome things that we couldn't have dreamt up ourselves.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so this is really an interview with these two. You have three boys, and they are all preteens.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about family life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have three boys. They are 12, 10, and 7. And they are all obviously, like everybody, homeschooling right now. We didn't homeschool before this quarantine time, so that's been a great experiment in figuring out how to do that.
What a nice way to describe it.
It's like
a forced march.
It is. Yeah. So, I mean, we've both been working from home and trying to figure out how to do a little bit of schooling and also have some breaks of sanity and joy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And our kids are at two different schools, two totally different schools. So two of them were with PPS at the elementary school here in town. And then we had another who's in a smaller private school. So even just the dynamics there hasn't been kind of a universal reality that we've had to navigate. It's been kind of broken up between those two experiences. And then, depending on the age level, the level of complexity there is just different. And so working through it, doing a lot of application troubleshooting and network troubleshooting and stuff to make sure that our technology actually can withstand the barrage of need now. So.
Yeah.
Really helpful for Patrick to share what he does for work. Also, Illumination Lab is.
Yeah, that's the Imago side of things.
But
I also work for a company here in Portland called Circle Media. So we work in parental controls for the internet, doing content filtering and time management kinds of things. So that's also been a dynamic that I've been navigating on the work side because, as a lot of people's work has really gone down or has kind of transformed, but is essentially the same thing. For us, because so many families are home, now all of a sudden the question of how the internet's going to look in their home has kind of become a top of mind thing. So our work has actually gotten significantly busier as folks are trying to navigate this new reality, not just here, obviously, but across the country and really across the world.
Yeah. And I'd love to chat a little bit more about what things you're seeing within families, like what are some of those difficulties, even related to Circle. But for you guys first, what's been the hardest part in parenting during the shutdown?
I don't know. We probably just have different answers. I don't know that we've
Sure.
really talked about this too much, but I think for me, I have I have certain assumptions about how life and work should look, and I I really just want to be able to step into that and just do it. So pick my version of work and life rhythm, and then just do it. And in some cases, that's fine, and in other cases, it turns out other people have different expectations or different needs or wants. So being explicit about those expectations is actually, I mean, it's not a reflex for me to do that, to make it really clear what I expect to have happen. And so my own frustrations, or things like that, of just the reality that there are children and they want things, and they see us sitting right there and seemingly available, and it's really hard to understand when people are available, when they're not, what's appropriate interruption, what's not, and how do we not just get super frustrated when somebody is stepping on our toes and violating the expectations that we've either implicitly or explicitly communicated out. So that's, I think, been the hardest thing for me.
Totally. And I mean, I think we both operate a lot that way, where we just kind of assume that it's going to be the way we expect it in our imagination, and then actually communicate that to each other or to our kids. So we're learning, even whatever week this is, that we need to kind of make a family plan each day. Our house is really little also. And so if we're both on phone calls, and then just like figuring out what do you prioritize when, because they're little human beings. And so like and really for me, it's figuring out like, what does work look like, because it's obviously really different if we're not meeting on Sundays. And so trying to have them in that equation of how do I parent them well, so Patrick can do stuff, so that I can get the stuff done I need to get done, and so that we can be a team in it, and tag team when we need to.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear you saying, I think it's really good to clarify. I hear you saying, explaining your expectations to each other aloud, clarifying what those are, negotiating with your kids through some of what those expectations are. And I think in the background, probably you're also making requests of each other, clarifying those offers and requests that can lead toward harmony with your kids, and allowing them to be, now I'm going to use business language, but allowing them to be stakeholders in the decisions you guys are making, rather than just simply, it doesn't sound like you're running a totalitarian household.
Try not to.
Yeah, some people feel differently.
And I would say on the other side of the spectrum, it doesn't sound like you're running a totally permissive household either. So what are some of those possibilities that the shutdown has led to? And by possibilities, I mean, it could be things like you're actually spending more time together, you're noticing things about your family dynamic in some positive ways. I've heard from some families that their kids are becoming better friends through this whole experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely happened for us because our oldest he's in middle school. The natural school dynamic has made it where they have less time together when they were at school. There just wasn't a lot of togetherness for them, aside from, sad at the end of the day rhythms. So they've had a lot of time to play together, and they've created a lot of their own like weird narratives that they're playing into that. And it was really fun to experience them imagining together again. And even this morning, he was like, can we go play together before school starts? Absolutely. That would be awesome.
Is today a pirate day or a Star Wars day?
I couldn't even put it in a category. Yeah. I don't know.
It's so off the rails. It's like, I don't know what's happening in this world anymore. One thing that I have found to be just like my favorite silver lining ever is that I got back probably an hour and a half of commute time. Um, and, between taking the max down, like going to the max stop, taking it down, the walk from the max stop to the other end of Pearl District, like there was a lot of time that was just like chewed up by having to get to work and get home. And I just don't have to pay that right now, which is actually wonderful. But that's allowed us to just kind of be able to have a little bit more room to breathe too, which is really nice.
Yeah, one of our sons really, really does not like to be rushed on things. And so it's been something we've been working on, is trying to prep him how to get to school well and I really try not to use the word hurry with him ever. And so he and I were having a conversation about how we haven't had to say the word hurry this whole time because we don't have to go anywhere.
Where are we going? Yeah.
There's been no hurry, and that's been really nice to not hurry.
Cool.
About anything. Yeah.
What would you say to parents who this whole thing? It sounds like you guys have weathered some conversations and conflict, and are moving forward in some really good ways. What would you say to families who this is actually creating a lot more dissonance and they haven't made it through some of those clarifying of expectations? And in simple words, they're in some big fights and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I guess like the biggest thing I could hope for people is just honesty and humility. It's really, I think even learning your dynamic of fighting, like what that looks like, and having good fights has been a growing process for us. And then like bringing our kids into that over our whole life together, right? But it's just we're all of a sudden all very together. So I just like being willing to admit when you're wrong and apologize.
Yeah. And the thing is, you're talking about that, Rach. I think for some people, I imagine they just go, we don't even know how to. I like the terminology used of having a good fight, and I think there's a ton of people too who they're like, we don't know what a good fight actually looks like to have that resolved. And this is my little pitch for a second, but if you are in that space as a family or in a marriage where you need coaching in how to sort through some of those things, we have some really great coaching within Imago of lay coaches and counselors as well, who are willing to walk with you and talk with you through those things for totally free, or simply just be praying for you. So that's a little plug, and I'll give our information about that later. Yeah. Anything for you, Patrick?
A couple things come to mind, I think, and just things over the last couple of days that we've had to kind of revisit. And the first one was just the reality that we have to keep resetting expectations. Like even if the expectations don't change, it doesn't mean that people are still, on the same page or haven't actively been, militating against those expectations in their overt or subversive ways. So, even just yesterday we called a team meeting over lunch, and it was just like, hey, like this isn't working. There's things that are going on that are causing problems, and I'm getting frustrated. I know you're getting frustrated, and people aren't feeling like they're being cared for. So we had to kind of pull the e-brake yesterday and just be like, hey, it's time to reset expectations as a family and remember why it is that life has to look like this and how we need to just be patient with each other, but also respectful of each other. So that resetting of expectations is just kind of a reminder. It's like, oh yeah, like our tendency is to drift. And so just getting that back onto the table was really helpful. The other thing that kind of popped out at me this morning was that there's a lot of the things that we're trying to do in terms of setting up structure can be communicated as just really an overt act of trying to control things. And I mean, it's like if I put a rule in front of one of my kids, is it because I don't trust them, or is it because I'm actually trying to care for them? And from their standpoint, it might not be clear. It may be just like dad's imposing his will on me, or dad's is really selfishly trying to carve out as much space for himself. I'm kind of at the receiving end of that. So, I mean, trying to communicate and even just take a step back and really be intentional about communicating. Like, I'm, we're trying to do this because we care about you and we love you, and probably that I need to check myself too to be like, is that really true? It's like, am I really doing this because I'm really trying to care for my kids, or is it really true that dad's trying to carve out some additional space in the home to, run his own ship with less encumbrance than maybe I should legitimately be carrying right now.
Yeah.
But at least trying to like preach that to myself and also reinforce that with the kids and with you too. And it's like, are we really doing this to care for one another? And if so, let's try to make that as clear as possible and reinforce like the life we're trying to live here is a life that's marked by loving each other well. And that's why these rules exist. And if that's not true, if that's not real, like, let's have that conversation.
Yeah, great. So if say if someone's family default is using tech to avoid issues and boredom, what would you recommend? I know that's close to your heart, Rach. Having 3 boys who are very active, their propensity is to love the video games and the adventure and action of all that. What would you say to someone that's kind of just their default to really avoid conflict in one sense?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I know that tension in my own heart of how like it can be this tool in my imagination to allow myself to do the thing that I want to get done, or just kind of get them out of the way. And even the other day, I'm like, oh, one of them, they used to always like enjoy watching each other play video games, and one of them has decided that that's not something they want to do anymore.
Video games.
And I was like, oh, that's a half hour I thought I was going to get some work done that now I have to not have to like pay attention. But just the assumption that it's so easy to think of tech as like our babysitter in a way. And that's, I mean, I think if anyone is willing to pull back and say, what is the best good that I actually want for my child, for myself, and how are we going to fill that in? Is this actually benefiting them? And for, by and large, it's usually not. And so like, not only, it just reminds me of the passage that everything's permissible for me, but not everything is good for me. And so that like, yeah, have a little fun, enjoy it, delight in it, and let it be a delight, but don't let it make you a slave. And so that's just having that, like, we have set parameters around when it happens and where it happens. And yeah, it is a big part of my heart that I see, partly because of Patrick's work and the things he tells me that he sees, but I just see that there is this, not only is like screens probably not the most helpful thing for any of us, but that there are things at work that want to rope our children in, and they want to get them addicted to it. And so those things are at work there. It's not the child's fault. It's that there are these organizations and these individuals and these groups that are seeking them out and trying to rope them in. And so just to be really mindful of that.
Yeah, and I think if anybody has questions about that statement you just made, I think I could hear some people going, addiction, really? Do they want my kid addicted? And if you you can easily just Google any of the voices within tech companies who are building these platforms. They themselves often don't even allow their kids to be on the platforms because of how they're creating the platforms themselves. So it's worth a look if you're curious as a parent about that statement. I think it's really worth researching that a little bit more about some of the intent behind not just the pretty screen, but the intention of our full attention. So for Patrick, how are you guys keeping your kids safe online when it's full access all week? I know you working for Circle, you have a Circle. Can you explain what that is a little bit? And then I'd love to chat a little bit more about maybe both of the ways you've talked with your boys about internet safety in general.
Sure. Yeah, so we have Circle installed on our network, and it's just a little box that you pair with your Wi-Fi, and it intercepts the data transmissions that are coming across the network. So you designate which devices you want to be watching, whether it's that Chromebook or that iPad or whatever. Circle's going to start working to intercept the internet requests that are coming from that device, and check them against the settings that you put in place. So filter settings, time-related settings, that kind of stuff. So we use that. The way that I have set everything up in the home right now is we have 3 devices that are all kind of designated school devices now. So one like true laptop, a Chromebook, and an iPad. We kind of cobbled together the things that we have, and the kids have their device that they're using, and I put them all into a kind of a common settings group, and really just applied a bunch of settings to that. One of the complexities that we run into is that some of the things that the schools are requesting that the kids use, or some of these education apps that the kids are trying to use to do their math videos and stuff like that, also will allow other things. Like it's way broader than just the education purposes, and so we're just trying to keep an eye on that. So recognizing that the technology solution isn't the perfect solution, we also have mandated a couple of things in our house. One of which the kids aren't super aware of because it's not on their radar, and one of them that they're very aware of, and I think that they hate. So the one that they know about is the devices are out in the open. So if you're using a laptop, if you're using the iPad, you're doing it in a public place. So we're not letting the kids take their devices into their rooms, or things like that. Like we want to be able to walk up to them and look over their shoulder and see what's going on. And that's as much to just make sure that they're staying on point with their work, but also just be like, it's really easy to click and then click and then click, and then all of a sudden you're somewhere you never intended to be. So really just being able to spot check throughout the day what's going on there. That's not their favorite, because that also means that they're kind of in each other's business, but that also means they're kind of in our business too, because we're in large part trying to also be out there in that same living space. So we're kind of all in it together. The other one is that we really haven't opened the door to a lot of social media that is dedicated to them. And our kids are young, and so that's maybe that's normal-ish, but I do know, just by virtue of the work that I do, that it's very common for really young kids to have their own Instagram, have their own Facebook, have ready access to stuff like that. And we just have kind of shut that down completely. Like none of the kids have their own accounts or anything like that. YouTube's this kind of weird other thing where it's like we don't want them to have their own accounts, going and doing things in there. And so that's the thing that I don't think is really on their radar, but it is a decision that we made to not let that be kind of a normalized thing in the house. And in large part, it's because we can't control the stuff that's coming at them. We could, help them understand how to conduct themselves in that kind of digital environment, but that doesn't mean somebody isn't going to try to message them, post to their account, do that kind of stuff. And so we're really just trying to kick that can down the road as long as we can. Fortunately,
so I have, for those who don't know, I have 5 kiddos and four girls who are all going to be teenagers in a month. And they are on social media. They don't use Snapchat, but pretty much most of the other things they use in some sense. And I would say the bedrock of any of these decisions that we're trying to make related to tech, first and foremost, come down to the ongoing relationship between parent and child, which maybe sounds obvious, but I think sometimes, and I don't hear this from you guys at all, I think what you're doing is super proactive, but I think sometimes for some parents, they can get into a spot of going, well, I just create the rule and then my kids are good with it and I don't need to worry about it anymore. When I think the heart of what tech, the possibility that it can actually create is opportunity to have a number of conversations about maybe some of the darkness of life or the goodness of life, or even the in between. And by in between, I mean sorting through why I would like something online or not like something, why I would comment on something or not comment on something, the instant gratification of purchasing things immediately without any form of cause-effect relationship with our finances. Any of those number of conversations are 100% worth having because they're shaping the character and the formation of our child. Even though it's virtual, it really is shaping their hearts in some way. And so the thing I'd encourage you as parents to do with this conversation is, if they are in social media, they have Amazon accounts or email or any of that kind of stuff, which feels more like teen on into launching, that's those conversations, to keep those ongoing and intentional. And even if they groan or roll their eyes, that there's this recognition to them, with them, that you're trying to shape how they use these tools, which are really, really good, but can also lead our hearts. If we are unaware of what our heart's doing in relationship to the tools, it can actually lead our hearts away from Christ or toward a lot of distraction, like you just described a minute ago, Rach. And that's, for us, that's led to some really much deeper conversations than we ever imagined about relationships, friendships, what we worship, what we care about in life, our value systems. And so I would say any of these things really do, as parents, use them as springboards into these larger ways of shaping our kids. Rach, any thoughts you have about?
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. It reminds me a little bit of money and like the conversations you get to have with your kids around money, if you let them spend some money, just that you guys are offering a platform to be able to be in it with your kids and process all of those pieces of identity formation that are happening, because it's not like they're going to leave your home and then there's no social media for them to be in. So it's just those training wheels as they grow that we haven't really had to think about yet. But it's fun to hear from you guys. What you guys are doing.
Yeah, well, and I think Jamie my wife helps me. I think I'm a good listener. And then when we get into these kinds of conversations with the girls, she helps me understand how bad of a listener I am. And so I do think in order to keep those conversations really vulnerable, it means that our kids have to have safe spots in relationship with us as parents to be really vulnerable. Some of the things they're seeing online or encountering online, if they don't feel comfortable sharing shameful things or awkward things or things that they might know I already like or dislike, but they don't want to let me in, that's the bigger concern that can actually lead them further and further into some darkness. One other thing I'd mention is there's a number of other ways to stay safe online. As parents, we'd encourage you to research those. Safe Eyes is one. There's a variety of other companies out there that offer things via email, offer things via IP addresses, all that kind of stuff. So that's worth looking at. But let me see. One last question. What's if you could only do 3 practices with your kiddos each day during this lockdown, what would they be and why? Beyond feeding and getting them in bed.
Those are important ones.
One of the ones I think of for you guys is that I think of you as a family who has fun and laughs together well.
We do that. Yeah.
We do.
I mean, yeah, I think having time to play in whatever way that looks, whether it's going outside or playing board games or also reading aloud at the end of the day. We try to do that every night. Patrick reads us a story. And it's been really sweet way to end the day all together.
Yeah. I think one thing that comes to mind, I know you said feeding the children, but we're trying to do, and we have up until now, we do dinner together just as often as possible. So like just the reality of eating aside, it's like we want to try to at least have that meal that we're having together, and we're all sitting together, and we're trying to extract information from people about their day and hear about how things went and stuff like that. And it can be really painful, but keeping up that rhythm of like, even though a lot of our structure disappeared, like we want to keep that mealtime structure intact as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like really once we have dinner, that's kind of like, that's our family time from there on until the kids go to bed. It's just our time to go. Yesterday was wrestling on the hill outside, and Patrick playing guitar over them in very dramatic way, and and then that's definitely been a good rhythm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time. I want to let you go. I just want to say I super appreciate you both, and I'm glad we're all in it together. And I'm not just saying this for the families. I'm saying it because it's true. Hey, John. But yeah, if you are a family and you are, and that, by family, I mean a number of things. You might be guardians who are caring for your grandkids, and any number of ways it can look. If you need help, we would be glad to have an email conversation or get online, get on a chat, and help you sort through some things. My email is jon@idcpdx.com, and Rachel's is rachel@idcpdx.com. And then Patrick, thanks for being a part of Circle and Inspiration Labs. If they wanted to contact you about some of that Inspiration Lab stuff, what's
John? It's Illumination Labs.
That's a nice name too. I like that.
But I like Inspiration. That's also great. I actually have an Imago address, so you can email me at patrick@idcpdx. It's a long holdover from many years ago.
Cool.
And then actually I just published the website too, so it's illuminationlabs.org, and you can take a look there, and there's a bunch of information and ways to reach out and contact us.
Great. And we're not sponsored by Circle, I should say, but where can they find the Circle info?
Circle's website is meetcircle, neetcircle.com. And then it's also available at like Best Buy and Amazon. So like that.
Great. All right. Thanks, you guys. Love ya.
Bye, John.
Bye, John.
Thanks. Bye, John.